Welcome to another Tutor Short provided by the Educational Support Services Department of Lehigh Carbon Community College in Schnecksville, PA, just outside Allentown. These videos provide key learnings for English and other writing-based courses provided here at LCCC. Please remember that the Educational Support Services Department does provide walk-in tutoring 5 days a week. Online writing tutoring is also available through the college website. Today we're going to be finishing up our pre-writing series talking about the bubble method and the outlining method of pre-writing. This follows up our video on basic pre-writing and brainstorming. If you haven't seen that video, this is going to cover the same basic topics, so I recommend watching that video first. It should give you some background information for what we're going to be doing today. Otherwise, let's begin talking about the bubble method. The bubble method of pre-writing is basically a way of organizing your information about your topic in a way that's easy to translate to an outline or a paper. The idea is essentially just you're starting with a central topic, in this case video games and education, and then you're building upon that topic with subtopics. So video games and education, well, one of the things that might support this is games and research. How are games being used in a research setting, an academic setting? And that supports the idea that video games are useful as an educational tool. Similarly, culture and philosophy, the idea of games being used to understand other cultures, that is strong support for the idea that video games are a good educational tool. So these bubbles around the outside of our main bubble all support that main bubble and relate to that main bubble. Similarly, the bubbles around these outer bubbles are also, in turn, supports for those ideas. So if we've got these ideas here, Wii Fit, calorie counting, the game Zombie Run, all of these refer back to games and health. So, Wii Fit is a game used for exercise. Zombie Run, same thing. It's a game that's used on your phones to promote walking and running in regular ways. So, all of these things reinforce our main topic there, which in turn reinforces our overall central topic, games and education. So basically, the bubble method is just a way of organizing your ideas. And actually, I think I'm going to add something else here. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, I've got games and research, games and health, games and culture and philosophy, but what about just simple simulation games? These are games that are used as basic teaching tools for different tasks. For example, you might have, so this is our overall topic, you might have a flight simulator. Or a driving simulator, maybe. I think I've even heard about games that are used to teach people dissection or medical work or surgery. So we'll put down medical simulators as well. But I'm not quite sure about that topic. I think I've heard about that somewhere, so I'm actually going to, and this is potentially a good thing for you to do as well, I'm going to put down a question mark here just to show that I'm not sure. And similarly, I'm going to, as I'm looking at this, I want to mark a question mark here too, because I remember something about a game being used to map star patterns, but I'm just not quite sure if it was SETI that did that or NASA. That might have been NASA that did that. and I'm not sure that even really qualifies as a game, so I'm putting lots of question marks there, and that's okay. That's actually a good way of doing this. You don't have to have all the answers at this point. You don't have to know exactly what is going in your paper. This is just a good way of grouping and organizing this information so that later when you want to go back to this and start writing your paper, it's in an order that you can parse out and understand. Similarly, you don't have to be stuck with anything you put on here. Like this example here, this games and health, I'm just not sure that any of this really reinforces the idea of video games as an educational tool. It's a helpful tool for people to get healthy, but I'm not sure that that really counts as education. Like, do games really help you understand calorie counting? I don't really think so. The Wii Fit, there's not too much of an educational component there. And Zombie Run, no, it's a game about running from zombies. There's not a lot there for education. So really, this whole topic is pretty much bogus. We can get rid of that. So that's okay, actually. Remember that I said that this allows you to find problems and solve them before you've written everything out. Wouldn't it have been awful if I wrote an entire paper and wrote 2 whole pages on this topic and then realized, wait a minute, none of this reinforces my thesis in any way. I'm just going to have to delete all of it. That would have felt pretty bad, but now I can just delete these few words and know that my paper's argument is secure. So you can see how this actually, even though it seems like an extra step, even though it seems like something more that you have to do in the writing process, it's actually a huge time saver that allows you a lot more freedom when you actually sit down to write the paper itself. So now that we've got a bubble diagram, we can actually translate that directly to our outline. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. Outlining is kind of complex, and we're going to be talking about that in a separate video. But for now, you can see that all I've done here is I've taken the elements of the bubble, and remember how we went from our general topic here. So that's the overall argument. And then we've got these subpoints of simulator games. Remember, I wrote that down. Games serving as a gateway to culture and philosophy. And I've refined this, right? So this is a little bit more specific and written out. Before I just wrote the word simulator games. Now I've expanded this to a sentence. Simulator games are used to train people in tasks. Games can serve as a gateway to other cultures or philosophies. And at the bottom here, games can be used to carry out scientific research. And of course, at the very beginning here, I've got my thesis. Video games can be useful as an educational tool to help people better understand difficult concepts. So I've taken my overall topic and I've fleshed this out into a full argument. And then at the very lowest level here, we've got each individual subpoint. There's games from other cultures, just like I had on the board here. I've got games from other cultures. So that's one subpoint. I've got the game Braid. I wrote that down here. And I've got the game BioShock. I'm going to talk about that. And its exploration of philosophy. So those points go back to our main point here on our bubble diagram and on our outline. These points all reinforce our main point here, our main subpoint, subpoint 2, games can serve as a gateway to other cultures or philosophies, which in turn is one of our supports for our thesis. It's kind of, they're all nested inside each other. Like if you've ever seen Russian nesting dolls, this is exactly like that. It's supports nested inside supports. Now, the outline also allows me to take the kind of free-form, floaty, abstract bubble diagram and put things down into a specific order. So I've decided that the first thing I'm going to talk about is simulator games. That's our point Roman numeral 1 is simulator games. I want to start with that because it's a pretty simple topic that people will find accessible. Point number 2, that makes a good middle point. Games can serve as a gateway to other cultures or philosophies. And then I want to finish off with this point number 3, Roman numeral number 3, games can be used to carry out scientific research. I think this is my strongest point. I think this is the most dramatic thing. The idea of games being used by scientists to collect information, that's pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to leave off with that because it's my strongest argument, and leaving the audience with that strongest argument is going to make my paper a bit more persuasive. So the fact that I've got this outline here means that I can now easily see when I go to write my paper what order I want to introduce these concepts, how I want to address each of them, how I want to lead from one to another. So rather than just sort of tacking things on to the end, now I know to prepare when I'm writing my simulator game thing. Now I know to prepare ahead and drop some ideas that will reinforce my next point about games serving as a gateway to other cultures. This means that now that I'm going to go write my paper, I have a much stronger sense of where I'm going, what my argument is going to be, what my support is, and how it's all going to come together into a single, logical, cohesive kind of thing. Now remember, not all of this is required. None of this is the official way that you must do it. You can be very loose with this if you need to. Don't be afraid to pick and choose methods as you like. Maybe you'll find that rather than bubbles, you'd find it easier to write all these ideas down as on Post-it notes and shuffle the Post-it notes around. I know some people that do that. There's lots of different ways that you can address this. This is just a way of introducing the idea of pre-writing and some of the methods available to you. Play around, see what works for you, mix and match these techniques, but I do recommend just trying something out to help you see how your argument is going to come together at the very end.